Last of Us 2 Factions multiplayer is now officially cancelled, meaning the last hope for the Last of Us franchise and Naughty Dog as a company is dead. But how exactly did this happen? Ultimately, it's been a rough few years for Naughty Dog. While The Last of Us 2 won a record amount of recognition at the Game Awards, ultimately it ended up dividing the fan base in half. And I was one of the individuals who was left incredibly disappointed with the direction the series chose to go. I've been waiting well over 7 years to see the continuation of the story between Ellie and Joel, and ultimately the game chose not to provide that. Settled for some half-assed lesson about revenge and why you shouldn't go for it, with the most hyper-realistic violent gameplay you could imagine. But despite all their bad narrative decisions and story mishaps, the one thing I really did believe would return the franchise to its former glory was the sequel to the Factions online multiplayer. The first Factions is honestly the main reason that I have hundreds of hours playing this game, and a version of it with The Last of Us 2's combat honestly sounds like a match made in heaven. But now we're never going to be getting that. And now instead of that releasing, we're getting a remaster of the second game barely even 3 years after it originally came out. And it seems all they've really added is a new survival mode that changes your character. Despite my feelings of disappointment for not being able to play the sequel to Factions, I have a lot of anger because this is something they marketed to us and promoted to us to keep original fans invested in the story and what directions it could possibly move into. And not even just that, the official release of The Last of Us Part 1 on PC was a disaster, which I've already covered in its own video. That experience doesn't even offer the original Factions as an option for you to play. In the studio's official statement, they had to choose between focusing all their resources on post-launch content or continue to focus on developing single-player narrative. But here's why that all feels like none of it is catering to or considering the experience of their long-term fans. The original Factions multiplayer still has a solid fan base and community to this day, and for good reason, because it is one of the best gaming experiences that multiplayer gaming has to offer. So for them to hype it up and make all these promises for years and years, have such a lackluster and underwhelming experience for The Last of Us as an IP for the entirety of 2023, and ultimately end up telling us it was all lies and they're canceling the entire game, genuinely this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I can now finally say I no longer trust Naughty Dog, because their actions have started to show me that they don't care about the fans, they care about the money, which wouldn't be a problem if they were giving the fans what they asked for. But instead of that, they're essentially doing the opposite, expecting us all to just eat up whatever SJW plotline they put in their next franchise. And ultimately, I'm not having it. Now granted, there still is a chance that we could get the original Last of Us Faction servers added to The Last of Us Part 1. And I believe that action by itself would be enough to hold over the fans and at least give us some kind of content for this game. But until that happens, with no news on any added continuation, right now I have to declare the Last of Us franchise as dead, and Naughty Dog is on its last legs.